Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are tuning in. Welcome to Run It Back, episode number 56. I am your host, Menelik Fernandez. Thank you so much for your support, joining in, watching, or listening, however you're consuming your media. The premise of Run It Back remains the same. We take teams that have played previously and we run it back, so to speak, where we discuss things like matchups, preparation, in game adjustments, what we would do differently, what we would keep the same. And we have been very fortunate. I say we all the time. I find that funny. I have been very fortunate with Run It Back to have coaches from the games of question join us and lend their perspective of what had happened in the games. So today we're exploring the game Indian River State versus Chipola College, which happened April 22nd, 2021. So it's only about a month ago. And we're doing so with the head coach of Indian River State, Coach Charlie Wilson. Coach Wilson, if you give me a second, I'll do my best to try and give you a warm welcome here. Coach Wilson had just entered into his sixth season as head coach at Indian River State. Sorry, you just entered into your seventh. Is that not correct?
Just finished number six.
Just finished number six. Um, Prior to this season, had completed with 99 wins and 320 season wins included. Qualified for the Region 8 playoffs 4 years in a row, and won Coach of the Year 2 times. Prior to that, he coached at his alma mater at Central Methodist, where he was also a player, as both a lead assistant and associate head coach from 2008 to 2015, finishing his time there as the head coach. So, Coach Wilson, we are very, very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm really, really excited to hear your perspective as we go into this.
Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure. So, take me through before we start into the game prep and all that kind of fun stuff. For anybody who's listening in and doesn't know, this game is the Elite Eight at Hutch, if I'm not mistaken. Sort of take me through, for the layman, what does that mean? What's the outlook of your league? How important is the game? What's the structure of the playoffs? I mean, they're fairly typical things, but just sort of give us some background as to Region 8 and where you are going in right now.
Yeah, I mean, getting to Hutch is the end all. That's the national tournament. The top 24 teams in the country get an invite. So, I think anybody at this level, that's the goal. If you can finish your year in Hutch, you've had a pretty good year. And so, we were very fortunate. We had a really good team. We were able to we're able to win our league, which our league changed this year. My guy Doobie and those guys are no longer with us. So we added Florida Southwest. We added State College of Florida. So we added two really good teams to go along with Dade and Palm Beach. And so we were really fortunate to have an opportunity to win our league. We got the 2 seed in the Region 8 tournament, and in Region 8, the top 8 get to go. Region 8 has also changed. We're now 3 conferences. So the top 2 teams from each conference go, and then there's 2 at-larges selected. And then they seed you 1 through 8. And so we were able to get the 2 seed. We were able to find a way. And in fact, this game that we're going to talk about today was Chipola. We ended up playing Chipola about 2 weeks prior to this in the regional championship. So the winner of the regional, which was Chipola, they get an automatic. And then we were fortunate enough to get an at-large to go to Hutch.
Nice.
So,
all right. So you're here. You're in the dance, so to speak. Give us some background as to what preparation is going to look like for you. I mean, you and I were talking when we were organizing this, and you mentioned that you do all of your scouts and have since you've been there. What does that process look like for you? How many games are you watching? Do you lend more weight to your previous matchup with this team? What does the outcome look like in terms of, is it a paper copy? Is it video? Is it a combination? Let us know what it's like there.
I think a normal scout is much different than this scout. We played Chipola twice. Both times we played them on the third day. So
Right.
we go to the regional tournament and we open up with Jacksonville on a Thursday, I think it was. We play Jacksonville Thursday, Florida Southwest Friday, Chipola Saturday. we get to Hutch. We open with Dawson on the 20th. We play CSI on the 21st. We roll around and play Chipola the 22nd. And
Yeah.
so if we were playing Chipola the first day, our scout would be much different. I think in my philosophy, you're pretty limited on a 18-hour turnaround. College kids are only going to absorb so much, and
Right.
I think the biggest thing in our scouts is you have to know your team. It doesn't really matter what my staff and I think and what my staff and I know. I mean, I didn't miss a basket this year. I also didn't take one, so it doesn't really matter what the suits think and what the suits know. It's what you can get your team to absorb. And so our normal scouts, I probably watch way more film than I should. It's just kind of what I have always done.
Right.
Um, our scouts are pretty thick, knowing that probably 75% of it they're not going to look at. A lot of it is for me and our staff. Um, and this is going to sound probably really bad, but a lot of it is for me to take the excuse away from them.
To take which away from them? Sorry.
Take the excuse away from our guys.
Right.
They have an opportunity to go through everything on their own, in addition to what we cover in the film room and on the scout. And so we put everything in it. For this particular game, they were handed nothing. When we played them in the regional championship, before we left the office, I went through and we knew we weren't going to have to play everybody. You could kind of narrow it down to 4 teams basically.
Right.
I printed out their roster and I printed out their stats, and then I printed a blank page that we could take notes on and film the night before. And so, as crazy and as probably bad as that sounds, the 2 teams we played Chipola, they were not handed a scout.
Well, I don't think that's like, having been in it myself at a point or two. I don't think, like, we always play Friday, Saturday up here. So a lot of the time that Saturday scout is just, as you mentioned, not the same as what that Friday scout is going to be. So when you have a weekend of 3, I can only imagine that that third one becomes complex. You did mention you spent some time in the film room. What would that have looked like after playing CSI?
So, we were fortunate. We just played Chipola 2 weeks prior.
Right.
And so, I felt better going into the Elite Eight than I did going into the championship game in the regional tournament. If I take it back to the regional tournament, we played Southwest Friday night. I think we were the 6 o'clock game. I think Chipola Eastern played at 8. I watched Chipola against Eastern, and to be completely honest, that's the second time all year I had seen them.
Right.
We had a common opponent early, and I watched that I watched that game a little bit. But when we got back to the hotel that night, that was really the first time I've sat down and watched Chipola in a prep situation. And so, going to the national tournament, the game we're going to cover today, we got back that night. We met that night, but we did not watch film together that night. And if I remember correctly, I'm not sure we even watched film at all going into the Elite Eight. We had a walkthrough at Fringe University that next morning,
Right.
and we pretty much covered everything then. We talked personnel, and again, we just played them 2 weeks prior. So it wasn't like we were having to learn a whole new team on an 18-hour flip. And so the staff and I watched film, and we did that most of the night. We watched a little bit of our game. We'd kind of already covered that once, so we watched a little bit more of some other stuff to try to steal some ideas, what worked, what didn't. To be honest, we were either going to show up and shoot it really well or we weren't, to be completely honest.
I hear you. I hear you. So give us a little bit of a background as to what happens amongst your staff when you're sitting and watching film together. Do you delegate certain responsibilities to film to certain staff members, or is everybody watching everything and you're just having an ongoing conversation as you're going through type deal?
Coach Belcher's been with me He's been with me basically since I've been here. And so again, as we talked a couple of weeks ago, since at my last stop about 2003, I think it was, I've done every scout on every game I've been involved in since 2003. And so it's what I've always done. I'm probably not very good at delegating that. I kind of feel like that's my baby. So
Right.
Coach Belcher will watch film. You know, every once in a while I'll walk in and say, "Hey, I want you to watch this. I want to get your thoughts on this." He kind of knows me. He kind of knows how I operate, and so he watches some stuff that is important to him. We bounce ideas off of each other. Rarely, as a staff, do we sit down and watch it together much. It's more he's in his office, I'm in mine. We bounce ideas, getting ready to finish the report and get to practice, and we're both on the same page before we walk into that film room to present it to the guys.
So there will be sort of like a coming together meeting of like, hey, did you see this and this, or I want to do this for that type deal.
Yep.
So you mentioned for this game, obviously there's the time constraint and you didn't get to film as a team. You did mention that you had a walkthrough at the college. What kinds of things, going from general to specific, did you really focus in on that you wanted to take away or you wanted to attack? What were the focus points in that walkthrough?
Um, a couple of adjustments. The thing about Chipola, one, Coach Tyndall is elite at what they do. I mean, you are not going to face a better coach on the sideline than Coach Tyndall and his staff. And so
Wow.
they play completely different than everybody else in the state. I mean, they zone press back to a zone. They got a 7-3 kid in the middle. I mean, there we could have had a month to prepare, and there was going to be very few things that we could simulate.
Right.
So, looking back, after we going into the first matchup, after we played them the first time, there was some stuff in the zone. I thought there were opportunities there. Now, whether we took advantage of them or not, but I thought there was going to be some opportunities. Offensively, going into the second matchup, we put a couple guys in a couple different spots to try to take advantage, of what I thought we had and how they covered some of the things in their zone. Defensively, I'm gonna be completely honest. We didn't change anything. We just talked about being a little bit tougher. I thought they have a couple of really thick and strong guards, and I
Right.
thought our toughness and our urgency in game one was very poor. I thought maybe they underestimate is not right. I didn't think we adjusted to the things they did well physically. I mean, they had that kid that just signed at Boston College. If you're going to cut him off, you better get fully in front. Getting on his hip, he's just going to make you feel like a little boy. And I didn't think in game one we did that very well.
Right.
And so the adjustments defensively for us was more like, all right, boys, how they play, the physicality, the pace, those types of things. We're going to have to be better matching that.
So this is kind of like an overall philosophy question. Would you say typically you're more in that realm of we do what we do defensively really well, or do you, for most games, give your guys like, we're going to totally change screen coverage, or we're going to totally change the way we're playing the help side of the floor, or something to that effect? What sort of end of the spectrum do you fall on for those sorts of things?
Honestly, I think we fall in the middle. I think some of it is, again, personnel.
Right.
Some teams are really good at certain things, and the next year you have a completely different, especially at this level when rosters flip so much.
Right.
We typically have a lot of stuff in, I know ball screen coverages, watching your stuff, you spend a lot of time talking about that. We have 4 different ways we cover it in our playbook. If you watch our games and you watch 15 of our games, we maybe only do it 2 of the 4. But
right.
I've always admired Bill Belichick in terms that he adjusts his stuff so much each week. And I think that's really difficult to go against.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think that's also really difficult to teach.
It is. And so I think a lot of our stuff is concept based.
Right.
And so it gives us a lot of freedom to say, all right, we're going to play Southwest on Saturday. These are the things that we really want to take away. Um, and it allows us a lot of flexibility to make adjustments for specific scouts. We will never we will never do something we haven't prepped and talked about for a while. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we'll never start prepping on a Thursday for a Saturday game and put something completely different in. We will never do that. So I think it's our job to teach these young men how to play. All of our guys move on to the next spot, and everybody teaches everything differently. There's a million different ways to skin a
Right.
cat, and so I don't know that we're preparing our guys if we say we got to do it this way only. And so I think some of that is why I've always changed things up a little bit and why we've had multiple coverages and multiple concepts. I think that's part of why. And, our program is growing. We got new administration. We got some really good things coming here at Indian River now, honestly. But previously, resource wise, we've been probably pretty low.
Right.
And so we're not Duke in terms of we can say, all right, we want to play this way, go out and get guys that fit that. For my first probably 5 years, it's been find the best players that will sign an LOI. And when we get those guys together, figure out what the heck we got.
Right.
And so I think that's another reason why we have really adapted, honestly, even semester to semester to fit, the personnel we have.
So a fair summary would be that it's a constant adaptation, and you try to figure out what works and stick to that a little bit.
Yeah, and what we're willing to give up. I think in scouting, I think that's something I think that is sometimes overlooked. We played a couple games this year, and I'm not going to name the names of the schools, but I'd get questions. Well, so and so had 25 and 12, and I said I know. I was okay with that. But
Yeah.
guess what? The other three didn't get. I mean, this team only hit. They shot 65% inside the paint, and they only hit 5 threes. I'm like, I know that's. And so I think when you get into scouting, sometimes being willing to give up certain things to take away certain things and not in game panicking, I think that is something that is often overlooked. And I think that's something we really try to do well. And our guys seem to buy in pretty well to that. Even the guy getting scored on because maybe we're not. We had a game this year where our best player was getting cooked.
Right.
But the reason he was getting cooked is we were leaving him one on one, and we were okay with it. Like, this kid's not going to score 60 on his own. And so,
So let me go down this rabbit hole a little bit, because I love this discussion. When you identify things that you are willing to give away, will you uh, will you make your bet on that, so to speak? Like, will you stay with that right till the end, or are there points in games that you're like, okay, I think we need to go away from that original philosophy? And what sort of needs to happen for that to happen?
um, a little bit of both. We're not. If I'm dead set on it, that I think we have to take a couple things away. I'm not going to change much. We might try to make an adjustment on maybe slide somebody else different on that person.
Right.
That will be an adjustment we make. We might really emphasize where they're catching it. Maybe try to do your work a little earlier. They step out another 2 feet. That's a big difference. Those types of things. Um, I'm trying to think back. I can't really think of a game, and it's probably my fault, but I can't really think of a game where we're like, all right, that's not working. Get out of it.
Right.
We've pretty much stayed pretty consistent, and I think I had somebody ask me that question one of the last times I did one of these, and they said, "What do you try to do the most?" I was like, "To be honest with you, we try to be consistent. We try to present things the same way. We try to do things the same way." Um, I don't ever want our guys to not feel confident or prepared. And so I think consistency is a big piece of how they play and their mindset during the games.
Will you run a lot of your stuff that is tailored against man, against a team like this that, like you mentioned, zone presses, falls back into zone in the half court? Or do you have a lot of zone stuff that you rely on? And if you do, I would assume that you get to use it less frequently than your man stuff. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, again, I'm a little different. We have a massive playbook, and I don't know how much we use it, to be
Right,
completely honest.
right,
And so going into this game and both times that we played Chipola, again, we didn't have a whole lot of time to prep, and to be completely honest, I don't know that either time heading into those tournaments, we really knew if we were even going to see them, and so as you mentioned, you play Friday, Saturdays, where you can spend maybe Monday throwing in a couple of things that you're going to see Saturday, and the players don't know that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And in this situation, we couldn't. And so, and the other thing that made it challenging for us in the regional tournament and in Hutch, none of the teams we were going to play before them do anything similar. So it wasn't like we could even take one scout and kind of shove it over to Chipola side. Um, things we emphasize, we really tried to. I always say if teams are going to press us, go get a layup or an open three. Like that's something we talk about. At times we run a zone press. I'm like, guys, we're just trying to kill 8 seconds. Chipola's just trying to kill 8 seconds. Like, why would
right.
you mess around with that? And so we tried to push it. We run a lot of sets, or we have a lot of sets, or a lot of concept base. A lot of We use a lot of one word verbiage for concepts. Sometimes I teach the sets and put the sets in to get to the motion and the freelance that we run a lot.
Right.
Some years I put the freelance in early and then add the sets later. It kind of depends on the team. We have, I don't know if I looked at our playbook. I think we had probably 8 or 9 zone sets that we have in the playbook. I don't know that we ran more than a couple against Chipola. I think a lot of it was concept based, freelance based. If I remember back correctly, our big kid Bryce Fitzgerald, number 40, we would put him in a couple different spots, and
Right.
everybody else knew what I wanted off of that. And so he might stay at the top of the key, and then the other 4 guys had a lot of freedom, and they kind of understood what we were trying to get if we put him high. They understood what we were trying to get if we put him in the corner, if we put him in the short block. And so going into Chipola, it was probably more concept based on what I thought we had an opportunity to get out of them, and what I kind of knew we probably needed to not try.
Like it. Let's talk a little bit about like your lineup. Do say like players 1 through 7 get more information than players? Well, we got a special guest. Sorry. My daughter tends to jump in on a lot of these. Say hello. Um, do players 1 through 7 tend to get more information than say like players 8 through 12? Or is everybody getting all the same amount of stuff?
No, everybody gets everything. And I think players 1 through 8 probably pay a little bit more attention because they know they're going to play.
Right.
But we are usually, our lineup is usually pretty versatile. A lot of interchanging pieces. Defensively, they've got to be able to guard a lot of interchanging pieces. Offensively, they've got to be able to do a lot of interchanging things. And so
Right.
we present everything to everybody. Now, when we get to personnel, I might say, hey, Antrell's probably going to spend most of the night on these 2 guys.
Right.
Antrell, you need to make sure you know these guys cold. We might do a little bit more specific things on that, but we do not give more information to one. It's everybody gets the same packet. Um, Individually, you kind of need to make sure you're ready for your part.
How early do you give matchups to your guys? I recognize this particular game was a really fast turnaround, but in an ideal situation, how early in the week would guys know that they're guarding a specific player or a specific set of players?
We'll we'll randomly say some stuff in practices. In terms of handing them the scout, I do not do it until the day before. We'll usually hit the film room before practice,
Right.
and so they'll physically get their scout. Then we'll physically go through stuff. Then, um, if we have 2 or 3 days to prep, then we'll sit there and say, hey, their guards do this, or we need to start taking away this, and they kind of understand. Antrell Charlton, for example, knows he's always going to get the best player. He kind of understands when we go. You know what I mean? Like they kind
Yeah.
of get it.
Yeah.
Um, Again, I think you got to know your team. Sometimes they can handle a lot of information. Sometimes they can't. And so I think as coaches, sometimes we have to trick them a little bit and present stuff and work on stuff without them knowing it. And I think we probably spend a little bit more time doing that early in the week.
Do you use things like depth charts? Do players know? Do they have a pretty good idea when they're going in and coming out of the game, or is a lot of that based on feel for you? And like, would you always play? Let's say your number is 8. Would you always play 8, or are you doing different things for different games?
I think in the first half they probably have a pretty good idea. This year's team, we were pretty consistent playing 8. I had 3 guys off the bench that, good or bad, always came in at the same time. Like I usually played those 3 guys at the same time, and so I think with us, they pretty much know roughly when they're going to go in the first half. The things that change that is obviously foul trouble, those types of things,
Right.
and then as you get a little later in the year, your bench shrinks a little bit. You start making a little bit more business decisions. Second halves, we make a little bit more business decisions in terms of who's hot, matchup situation, what we're trying to accomplish. But we traditionally play about 8.5. I mean, I am not
Fair.
one that gets to 9, 10, 11, 12. I can't do that. And so they know roughly what's happening. And usually the only thing that takes away is a foul situation.
What I find so in my conference, a lot of coaches play 10 and 11, which makes scouting quite a bit more difficult, I find. But I don't really see that happening too many other places. I'd say you're right in around the number that I hear pretty consistently, 8, 8.5, somewhere in there for sure. Let's talk about in-game management. Like in this particular game, say at half, you're up 4 points. What are you saying to the guys at half? What's important to you on a box score? What are your assistants tracking that's over and above, and how do you utilize that information?
Again, we just played them. We played 24 games, and in 23 of the 24, we were in it. Even the other 3 that we lost, we at Southwest, we let them go on a 17-0 run, but with like 2 minutes to go, it's like a 4-point game. At State College of Florida, we got down big in the first half, and they're shooting a free throw that they miss up 2 with like 30 seconds to go. The only game that we were never in was the state championship game against Chipola. And so being up 4 at Hutch against them at half, I think that was more of my message was, all right, boys, much better first half, those types of things. In
Right.
terms of box scores, what do we look at? To be honest with you, I'm not used to having them. So it's kind of a luxury when we play somebody that you're handed a stat sheet, usually we're giving them stats off the top of our heads and kind of what we think and what we see.
Right.
But I'm looking at, for
I'm
us,
sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, Coach Wilson. Is that something that your school doesn't provide, or that your conference just for the most part doesn't do?
Junior college level is a little different. When we go to Southwest, they give us stats.
Right.
At the state tournament, it's a requirement.
Right.
Outside of Southwest, I don't think we play anybody that does.
Interesting.
And so, and we do our own stats after the game, and we are required to upload them. And so, having a stat sheet at timeouts and halftime is just, to be honest with you, odd for me. But we have to watch our shot selection a little bit. Sometimes our guys will get a little 3-point happy because we shoot a ton of them. And
Right.
so I always look at that kind of ratio. I'm always looking at the rebound ratios, and then and for us, assist to turnover stuff. Those are probably the three areas that we talk the most about, that we kind of look at. Um, we don't really dive into a whole lot else. We try to make a couple of adjustments at half, maybe something that's hurting us or something that's working. But it's kind of reinforced what we've talked about, make sure mentally they're good to go and hit the floor.
Do you find at the games that you do get stat sheets that because you've been training so long without them that you're pretty close to what the actual numbers are a lot of the time?
Yeah, we're usually not far off. There's sometimes a guy's taking a couple shots that I didn't remember, or I think the one thing I'm surprised at some is, I thought so and so got more shots than what he ended up getting.
Right.
I think that one surprises me some. I think the other one that surprises me sometimes is minutes played. We don't track them. When I do a box score, I put 1 minute for everybody because we don't really have a way, and huddle's not exactly on point on that. And
Right.
so there's been some box scores I've looked at after the game, and I'm like, man, I didn't realize he played that many minutes, or I didn't realize that he only took that many shots. But the rest of it, we're usually somewhat close for what the actual numbers are.
So then would you have your assistants tracking a lot of metrics that would go into a box score afterwards, or do they track other things like, I don't know, defensive kills or deflections or something like that?
Um, you know, I was an assistant there at Central for two different stints. One as a student, and then I came back in '08 and was with Coach Sherman from '08 to 15 as his top assistant. And early on, Coach Sherman had me doing certain things, and the longer I stayed, the more freedom he gave me.
Right.
I never liked, like, for example, early in my career, if I was the only assistant, which happened a lot because of other games and whatnot, I had
Sure.
to keep the book. And I hated that because it took me away from paying it. I mean, if I did the scout, it took me away from coaching. And I
Okay.
always said if I ever became a head coach, I was going to give my assistants a lot of freedom on what they take during the game. And so, um, again, Coach Belcher is a little different. He's been with me forever. I kind of let him do what he think is important to him.
Right.
Um, he understands me, so I don't ever say, Coach, I want you to take these. He keeps track of timeouts and he keeps track of certain things that we feel are important going into that game. But I want my guys to have the ability to watch the game and coach and make adjustments when guys come out, and talk to players when they come out. And if I'm sitting there saying, I want to know every rebound and I want to know this and I want to know that, I feel like that takes away from what they probably should be doing that's more important. I mean,
I,
at the end of the day, if we're getting drilled on the boards, I don't need a number to know that.
yeah. I got a pretty good, like, I'm watching the game. I got a pretty good idea of that.
I
Uh,
tell you the one thing, not to interrupt you, the one thing that he has kept that's been really, really useful for us is he counts empty possessions.
Interesting.
So, we might go 3 or 4 possessions without scoring, and I'm getting a tug or getting a pop on the hip when I walk by him, Coach, that's 3 in a row. You need a bucket. That's probably the one thing that he has kept religiously that has been probably the most useful that I wouldn't have asked him to keep.
And that would include turnovers and missed shots, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
anything.
like, Coach,
Yeah.
we haven't scored in 4 possessions. Coach, there's 5. Coach, there's 6. And at the end of the day, I know we haven't scored, but I might not know that it's been quite that long, or that kind of stuff. And so that helps quite a bit. I give our guys a ton of freedom, but if it's been 3 or 4 in a row, I might step up a little bit and dictate maybe that next possession.
We're going into one of our staples that usually ends up with getting the right person the ball type deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it. Um, so in hindsight, they say hindsight is 2020. Just before I move into some film and ask the gentlemen in the room if they have any questions, I know that it was a short turnaround, but do you think that there was anything that was maybe omitted in the process that you had the ability to add in that could have influenced the game a little bit differently? Or do you think, I mean, like we said, really, really short turnaround. Do you think maybe you did all you could with the time that you had?
I think our guys going into this one, um, I think our guys did a really good job working on the two or three things we really emphasized that morning. You know, we did make two or three adjustments that will contradict what I just told you, but we made two or
Okay.
three adjustments offensively going into that game that we had not done. Um, and so I thought they did a pretty good job. You know, literally, we're on the court at Friends, and I said, we're going to do this and we're going to call it this. And so I thought they did a really good job. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we were up 38 minutes against Chipola at the national tournament in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Had a really bad 2 minutes to end the game.
Yeah.
Our best player, I think, went 1 of 11, and we were winning for 38 minutes. You know, a kid that averages 15 off the bench didn't score like he normally does. And we were up for 38 minutes against Chipola when 2 weeks prior, you know, we hit a three towards the end to get it to 13. Like it was never really a game. And so looking back, I'm sure I could beat myself up and say, man, I wish I'd have done this, this, and this. But 3 games in 3 days, playing an elite program, an elite coach, I thought our guys did a really good job um, implementing what we tried to do. At the end of the day, a couple bad turnovers, a couple missed shots, ball bounced the wrong way a couple times, and you end your season in the Elite Eight, which I think there's a lot of coaches in the country that would have said stop complaining, I'd have traded spots.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get to play this year, so I'll take your Elite Eight any day of the week. Absolutely. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free. If not, I'm going to jump into a little bit of film here. Um, Give me 1 second to get set up. Are you okay with the size of that, Coach? Does that seem
Yep.
about right? Yeah. And let's try the playback here. Is that smooth? Does that look okay for you?
Yeah.
Perfect. So first play of the game, you're attacking their 3-2. For anybody who's listening, I'll play it once and then try and describe it second time through. And give me an idea as to what you're looking at here on the third time through, Coach Wilson. So I mean, basically, there's sort of like shadow full court pressure. You get it over, the ball gets swung, offensive right slot, pretty high, and then guy at the point puts it back to the right slot, and while the right slot is looking, you get a backdoor cut on one of the two in the back of the 3-2. I mean, did you know they were going to come out in zone? I anticipate the answer is yes. Did you think this would be a look that you would have so early in the game? Just sort of walk me through what you see in this, please.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Tyndall did two things all year, and I'm not sure he did a possession of anything different. He 2-2-1 box press back to a 2-3, and he never did anything different. I never saw another possession of anything different. I'm sure he did. I just didn't see it. So, you know, one thing at the state tournament we had a lot of success was flashing the middle, you know, and we would do it in kind of an untraditional way. You know, number 30, Antrell Charlton right there is just has a knack for understanding what to do. And
Right.
so he did a lot of at the state tournament, you know, act like he's screening away. You know, the top guy's going to jump up to try to take the guard coming up, and he would flash middle. And so I knew Coach Tyndall would try to take that away early. Honest to God, this first set is not a set. What we really wanted to attack, if you look at that big kid over there on the left with the funky colored shoes, that cat's 7'3" with about a I don't know 58-foot wingspan or whatever. And so, you know, we put number 40 as our center, and in one of the things we put in that morning in walkthrough, we put him at the top of the key. And so everybody else on that court is a 40 plus 3-point shooter. And so we put the big fella at the top of the key because one, he shoots it pretty well. You know, he's a 35 or so percent 3-point shooter and shoots quite a few of them.
Right.
And so we put him there, and then with how we thought Chipola played and kind of their rules, it was going to put the 7-3 guy in an uncomfortable situation. And so we really worked on cuts. We do a lot of that within our freelance and just our concept. So if you just watch it, I mean, number 40, keep your butt at the top of the key. Everybody else play basketball within our concepts.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, if you look at the guy in the right corner, Jacob Jackson, he's our starting two. I mean, look, the bottom guy of their zone is all the way up there at the top. So if the big fella doesn't come out, Jacob's getting a wide open three. And so between Jacob in the corner and Trail under the rim and 22 on the left side, there's two guys to guard three. And it was really, all right, boys, we're going to try to get to that situation as much as we can. We trust you, make the right play, hit the shot.
Like
And
it. James Colville put in the chat, how much zone do you see like overall for the season? I would assume he means.
I mean, normally you probably see a decent amount, but with COVID, we played a 20. Well, we were allowed 22 games. We only played 18 regular season, and shoot, what was it? 12 of the 18 was conference. And so, our non-conference games, we only played three teams. We played Pensacola twice, we played Daytona twice, and we played a prep school twice. And so we did not see much zone this year at all, because, I mean, literally we played 18 games and they were almost all the same teams. And so nobody in our league really plays much just straight zone. And so ordinarily we see quite a bit. This year we did not, and we definitely did not see anybody of Chipola's caliber, meaning 7'3" cat in the middle, 6'9" Kevin Durant type guy in the back. We don't see that kind of stuff.
So let me ask you briefly to summarize sort of like the rules of their zone as you saw it, scouted it. Because like when I look at this right here, I would call this a 3-2. And you mentioned that they were in the 2-3. And they drop back into what looks like a 2-3 as the balls. So right here, you're getting more into 2-3 rules. What sort of made their rotations? How did you anticipate they were going to rotate? I suppose is what I want to ask. Like you sort of had an idea as where you could move that big guy on the bottom for sure. So walk me through your scout a little bit if you don't mind, please.
But if you walk through this, I think again, Coach Tyndall's elite. And I think he made an adjustment. And if you stop it right there, you see the guy at the free throw line standing next to my guy.
Right.
Game one, that guy was not there. They did a straight 2-3, and we killed them catching the ball right there.
Interesting.
And I think the adjustment Coach Tyndall made was that he was more comfortable bringing his bottom guys up to help,
Yep.
and he put one of his top two guys in the middle. And so I think that was Coach Tyndall's adjustment, because that was the big success we had. I mean, you can see right there, my guys interchange, and the dude does not leave the free throw line.
Right.
So I think giving Chipola the credit on that, I think that was his big adjustment. Not that he needed to make one. I mean, he beat our tail handily the first time, but I think that was his big adjustment, was try to take away the middle catch. We honestly, we did not care about scoring in the paint below the free throw line. I mean, we said, look, the 7'3" guy is there. If you go down there, it's a nothing. You're just probably not very intelligent to try to do that.
Right.
So we tried to space them out. The one thing I thought, and I don't know Coach Tyndall's rules at all. When we go against a zone, there's a couple things that I look at first. The first thing I always look at is who covers the high post.
Right.
The second thing I look at is, do they bump on the wings? And so based on those two things, I kind of formulate what I think we can do to attack who covers the high post and if they bump or not.
Love
and
it.
Coach Tyndall, in film scout going into both games, they don't bump very much at all. And so I thought those corners were something, and they trap in the corners and they trap in the post a lot. And so there were some things that we said don't ever do, because we just thought it would be a lose-lose.
Right.
There were some things that we thought that if you could get them in these situations, you're going to have a 2-on-1.
Nice.
And it was again, we spend a lot of time on the court in practice. We give our ties a ton of freedom during games.
Love it. One of my previous guests fairly recently said, the game is your time to shine. The practice and the prep and all that, that's my game. That's my time to shine. And I like that expression a lot. So here's one of theirs. I saw them run this a couple times during the game. Pulled this clip on it. Didn't really end up in anything for them, if I remember correctly. It looks like a horns alignment to start that turns into a stagger away. They reject, and then they hit the first of the stagger, and it turns into basically an empty side ball screen at this point, which he uses, and he comes down the center of the floor, misses the layup. They miss the putback, and if I remember correctly, you guys end up with the ball on the out of bounds. So I'll go through it one more time, just for anybody who's listening. Basically, like I said, the ball comes to the offensive right slot, turns into a stagger away, and they reject it and turns into an empty side ball screen. And then this, the screen coverage here, I would call a drop and under. And then I wanted to ask you sort of about like your help principles, or if you're trying to play the ball screen with two. So all you, coach.
This is probably going to tell you how non-intelligent I am. We played them 2 times. We did not cover an offensive set one time in scout. Not one time. We didn't cover anything. We didn't even try to write down names of plays. Coach Tyndall might be the only coach in the country that has more stuff in his playbook than I do. I think it is all concept based. A lot of kind of very similar to us. A lot of one word, meanings. And so,
Right.
if we would go back to the first game, one of the actions that really killed us was what they did right. If you keep it going, he comes off that horns look, and that guy, splits that, or he rejects it or whatever. But that action really hurt us in game one. They would go set a double
Right.
away, and the guy would cut down the middle of the screen, and they killed us on that in game one. In the walkthrough that morning, and obviously we watched the Chipola game on campus before we went to Hutch. And so we broke that down. We had a few days. We had a couple days that we could spend looking back on our stuff before we got into Dawson. So we watched the Chipola game quite a bit and went through possessions, and to be honest, was probably not very nice in how we presented it to our guys. And so I think this is Coach Tyndall early in the game trying to get to action that he killed us with in game one. And so the only thing we really talked about in scout in terms of a play that we wanted to stop was we worked on this split action, reject action, whatever you want to call it. Going into games, we will always say, all right, guys, ball screen coverage is this. And so the one that they do here is I told you early on we have four in our playbook. The one they did here we don't have in our playbook.
Right.
And so we don't ever do this coverage. If I remember correctly, we should have been icing it, pushing it, down in it, whatever. Everybody has a different word for it. That should have been what we were doing here.
Right.
Our guard doesn't get up high enough, obviously, and so it just turns into you better play. Our big doesn't show very well. In terms of weak side philosophy, we usually have one in, one out. If there's two guys over there or three guys over there, one will be responsible for the paint, one's going to be responsible for the first pass out, and we rotate after that. So those two guys are standing in the line. That probably should not happen. One of them needs to be a little bit more committed into the middle of the paint. The other one is going to play first pass. 30 is kind of in no man's land. He's not in a good spot to stop the ball. He's not really taking anything away from one. He's just kind of there sticking his hand in. And we're much smaller than Chipola, so you're going to give them. We got very fortunate; they missed 4 or 5 layups on this possession, and we really didn't do, honestly, anything right.
Would this be an accurate representation of the help that you're describing? The low man being your most important guy should be more in the paint. That's what that ugly arrow denotes. This
Yeah,
gentleman would have, he would have both closes, and you want him number 30 more over covering the nails, so to speak.
yeah. To be honest, we would probably flip it. We would probably put the top guy on that stack as the guy responsible.
This gentleman
Um,
here.
yeah, we would probably put him as more responsible for the paint. Meaning, and in honesty, I think it's a personal preference. I feel like if the bottom guy slides in, he's too low to do
Right.
anything. And so for me, the top guy is going to be in and rotate and stopping the ball. The bottom guy is going to have first pass. You know, the guy on the top of the stack, honestly, for us is reading 30. You know, if number 30 commits all the way to stopping the ball, then the top guy in the stack can cheat out a little bit more. Like we don't have to have two guys committed to the paint. You know, if 30 gets sucked all the way in, then the top guy Tanaj might have to fly up to take one away. You know, and so again, it's a lot of I think we try really hard to work on situations in practice to teach them concepts and then they read off of each other and it gives them, you know, I think a little bit more freedom and allows them to play a little faster, a little bit without hesitation.
Love it. The next one is a pressing clip. I felt this was the first time in the game where they became a little bit more aggressive with the press. And then they drop back into their zone coverage. So talk to me a little bit about how you teach your guys to beat a 2-2-1. And then I find that a lot of teams have difficulty playing in the half if they don't get that immediate layup or three after moving the press down the floor. What do you teach your guys? How are they playing out of that half? And forgive my
Yeah,
voice. I don't know why I'm losing it. Sorry.
no, you're good. And sorry, somebody knocked on my door, so my attention went away for a second. You know, if you go back to the beginning, I think the first thing we screwed up on was we didn't like right here is wrong. Um, you know, again, we give our guys a lot of freedom, but there are certain things we don't. Um, the guy that took it out of bounds should not have taken it out of bounds. And so by doing that, if you look at our alignment is completely wrong. And so how we want to attack a press and how we want to kind of push tempo, we got a couple guys in the wrong spot. So it slows us down. So I don't know that I think this is maybe where Chipola ratcheted up. I think it had more to do with we let them ratchet it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I thought our attacking it was not correct. You know, we get the ball in a situation. You can keep going. We get the ball to 40 in a situation that the things we told him when he catches it to look for was not there. You know, 22 should have taken the ball out of bounds. He doesn't know what to do over there. And so, you know, we're kind of out of whack. We don't turn it over, thankfully. We end up getting a really good shot out of this. We just don't hit it. Um, but it's attack the press right here. We're keeping 40 at the top of the key. So everybody knows that. Like that's what we're in. He's slowly getting there. And
Yeah.
then this action right there with 30, that's what we really hurt them on in game one. That's what I thought Chipola worked really well to stay, you know, to try to take away. But really what we did in this game a lot of the times was put the big fella at the top of the key and everyone else cut and make the right reads and make the right play. And so again, we don't get a bad shot. We get Antrell Charlton to catch and shoot 15-footer against a 7-3 guy. So it's not the easiest shot in the world, but it's one that I'm good with. You know, he makes that shot 75% of the time.
Like it. I think I put this in because I like their action. I don't think it really did much for them overall. They got an Iverson cut over top, a cross screen, and then it turns into basically spread ball screen type deal. And I mean, they basically just throw it right out of bounds after that. But you mentioned you didn't put a lot of sets in. Had you seen this action the first time you played? Were you sort of prepared for it in the walkthrough? Or did you just really use your ball screen principles and not worry about all the preemptive action?
I think that's what we try to do more of, you know, and I think also again, I've had some teams that really like scouts They really dove into them. They really wanted to learn. And I've had some teams that could, I mean, I don't think it's physical. I don't think you could physically care less. You know, they just wanted to play. And so we've kind of learned over the years to adjust. A lot of ours was concept based for this. Ball screens were covering this way, handoffs were guarding this way. They catch the ball here, we're sending them this way. And I thought off onto these really quick turnarounds, I feel like we have a better success rate of them guarding concepts than them trying to remember plays. And so we don't guard the ball screen coverage there. The guard gets too low. Again, we should be keeping him on that side. That's the only part on this. You can even see 30 trying to get over the top. He's just not there. Our big is in ready to be in help coverage going baseline. But we spent more time and more talk on concept based guard, how to guard actions, not necessarily how to guard plays. And then we talk a little bit more on how to guard personnel. A lot of coaches and a lot of teams, you know, personnel run the same specific actions over and over and over. And so if you can take away player A doing this particular action, you know, especially at this level, they don't always feel comfortable with the counters.
Right. Ends up throwing it to the cooler on that one. So I asked this next one every week on the show. Gives me an idea of shot selection that a coach is okay with. Transition threes, yay or nay for you? And if yes, what criteria needs to be met? And if no, is that only personnel based?
I'd say we probably shoot more threes than anybody. I've always said, I've kind of learned this at other spots that I've been at. I've always said I don't want my guys hesitant. I don't want them going, should I or shouldn't I? And so everybody on the team understands what they're allowed to shoot and what they're not. I will never pull a guy for shooting something I've told them to shoot it.
Right.
I will pull you probably every time for not shooting what I told you to shoot it. And so,
That's for me.
do I love that shot? I probably don't love my starting center shooting a transition wing three, but he has the green light for any catch and shoot three. He is not one that maybe has the green light for pull up threes and action threes, but he has the green light when his feet are set. And so for him, he had the green light. I probably don't love the situation on it, but it's not one that I'm going to say a whole lot to him because it was an inside out three, sort of. You know, his feet are set, he's ready to go. And, you know, that's his skill set. He's down and ready, his feet are good, his hands are good. I got no issues with that. I absolutely probably hate pull up threes and step back threes and like that kind of stuff that James Harden has made millions and millions of dollars on. I probably hate those more than anybody. So in transition, those I don't love. I don't love the transition threes that where the NJCAA logo is. But if your feet are set and it's a shot that we have covered that you are allowed to shoot it every time, twice on Sunday, and I'll live with the result.
Love it. This is the same stagger away set. So it starts with that horns action. Here's the stagger away. They reject again, and then they get to they don't get to the ball screen side of the floor. They keep it on the three side. And when they keep it on the three side, he dribbles up and attacks from the right slot and gets downhill. And I was just wondering sort of about your help principles, where ideally you would want to help from on this drive and how you would correct everything here.
I mean, to be honest, if you go all the way back, there should never the three guys on the other side of the floor should have never been involved. I mean, we got them dead to rights. We keep going. He's dead to rights right there. I mean, the guy is what, 8 feet from the baseline,
Right.
and he dribbles and shoots a left-handed layup or right-handed layup, whatever it is, all the way down midline. And so, yeah, the help side opposite probably wasn't the greatest situation, but at the end of the day, five's got to be better. I mean, he sends him to
Right.
the corner. There's a guy in the corner, and so ideally, opposite again, it should be one in, one out. They get a little, crossways over there. Um, to be honest with you, I'm kind of okay with all of them. At the end of the day, the guy guarding the ball's got to be better. If the top guard on that opposite side sucks it anymore, you're giving up a wide open three. If you look underneath, we kind of got it covered, halfway decent. The
Right.
big fella's on top. Linton 22 is there, the bottom guy on the other side. He's ready to go in or out, either one. At the end of the day, in college basketball, high school basketball, it doesn't matter what level. If you let a dude dribble from one side all the way over and shoot a layup, it doesn't matter who else is on the court.
I agree with you. um, we got another defending clip. It's top ball screen. My question was, were you trying to play it with two here? Looks like your screen defender ends up on the wrong side. So you mentioned earlier with some film that you were trying to ice. Would you still be trying to ice this far over? And the one in, one out, I'm assuming your top guy is not over enough.
Yeah, that one right there is on the borderline for us. We kind of have positionings on the court that, we don't use the term ice, but we'll ice ball screens up to a certain point, and then when they get in the middle, we're going to have to hedge or whatever else we want to do that day. That's right there on that borderline. To me, that's probably a bad communication if we could hear it. I would venture to say our big probably yelled the right coverage, and the guard was probably just too late, didn't hear it, didn't pay attention. Our biggest rule on ball screen coverages, to be completely honest, is we send the ball to the screener, the screener's defender, I should say. So no matter what we're doing, no matter what coverage we have, we don't ever want the ball to go opposite. So in this situation, we don't want the ball to go opposite of our big.
Which it
So
does.
whether we're icing it, hedging it, doubling it, whatever other concepts you want to throw in, we want those two guys married. And so when it doesn't happen, it was either a guard didn't get low enough or high enough or low enough, whatever it is, or the big was in the wrong spot. And so it should have never got to this point. Ideally for us, yes, the guard on this guy side, guarding number two, needs to be in a situation where the guy with the ball is one of their top two players. You don't let a top two player go right down the middle of the paint. If he gets underneath number 10, and then you put 22 right there in a lose-lose. If he doesn't help off, it's a layup. If he helps off too much, it's a walk-in three that you don't miss at this level.
Right.
And so the ball screen coverage has got to be better, but if they get beat opposite, 10 has got to make sure it turns into a stunt and go. 22 will stun up at 2 and take away the corner, and you hope number 2 is hesitant or makes the wrong read. At the end of the day.
Gotcha. We have one more ball screen coverage one. Sorry, coach. This was a top ball screen that I thought looks like it resulted in a veer switch. So it's the second screen that happens here. So he goes to his left and your big ends up switching. So I'm curious to know at what point do your guard and your big emergency switch or veer back switch. And then your tag is all the way in on this, and it's actually your low man. So I was wondering if 5 should be splitting the difference in your concepts.
I don't think it was a switch. I think it was a poor hedge. I think he flat hedged it, and their guards are really good, and their guards understand that I can get to that big's hip and I can turn the corner.
Right.
And so for me on that one, the big has got to jump out a hell of a lot harder to try to get him to bubble out a little bit.
Right.
At this point right here, 22 is doing exactly what we told him not to in the scout. In game 1, they hit a ton of these threes in this back corner off of this drive. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the layup and they're looking for the 3 in the corner. Like, they're not looking for the big rolling. Those are the 2 looks that they're on. And so we kind of told our team the two involved in the ball screen, it's your job to stop the ball. On this, that guy in that backside corner don't do what you just did. They don't throw it there. Yeah, 5 should have paid attention and probably seen that 22 was out of position and doing what he was told not to do. But in the scout, 5 is basically doing what we told him to do, if that makes sense.
Right. So in an ideal world, 22 and 5 would play this how? I'm sorry.
22 doesn't give up the corner three.
Okay.
I mean, in an ideal world, 40 does a better hedge. They ride him down, they kind of collapsing. You can see right there the guard has already turned the corner.
Yeah.
But you can look, if you look, that guard's not even looking at the rim. He's not trying to score. He is looking straight at their 4, I think it's 35, in the corner. And that's what we were trying to take away whenever they got low, especially that guard. He does a really good job of finding those corner threes. They hit that corner three a lot. And they sucked us into this. If you were to watch our state championship game, they sucked us into that shot a ton. And
Right.
so that was something on film we tried to emphasize. And at the end of the day, I mean, they catch us not paying attention, I guess, good way to put it.
This is one of you guys attacking what I still called their 3-2. You said it's their 2-3. And there's the pass that you were talking about. You got them a lot there. Did you make an adjustment to try and get in behind and get in that paint more often at this point in the game, or was this just a good read, good look at this point?
We are always trying to get the ball there in terms of whether it's right there or if it's in that hole. We just try to teach them to find the hole. Don't go to a spot that's necessarily a certain spot, but read where they're at and read where it's open. And so I thought Linton did a really good job. Again, Donnie, I think if you watch all their other games, it's a 2-3. I think in this game, because of what we did in game 1, he morphed it into something else.
Right.
He made that, you can see right there, he made that guy, and it was kind of poor communication on their part. But Linton did a really good job of understanding that the top of the free throw line, the hole was covered. But if you go down, there's a bigger hole. And again, we got a shooter in the backside corner that's a 48% 3-point shooter. And then we got our big, this time we have him low. We have our big right there. So again, we're playing a 3-on-2. They did a really good job of moving the ball till we get a 3-on-2 situation. We just got to make the right read and the right play when we get that number.
Well, I mean, he's taking off from the block charge circle, so I'll live with that any day of the week.
No doubt.
So I didn't get the clip of it for this, but they ran a little bit of Spain or stack action. This one is actually more of like a ram screen to a ball screen that then ends up with roll replace action. Sort of looks like Spain as well. And, they make an excellent pass here, but how did you guys want to defend this action?
Our big right here is where our big screwed up. I mean, if you go back, there's really no reason why 34 does this. He should just be tagging him up. The point guard is going to send him into the ball screen. It turns into a hedge, and it turns into normal basketball action. But right here, we're beat. I mean, our guard and our big at the free throw line, they don't know what to do now. Poor communication on the first part. And so our guard doesn't know, they don't know right now who's supposed to step over and take the ball. Normally, how we play with this year's team, and again, next year could be completely different, but in a normal roll replace action for us, whoever's low stays low, whoever's high stays high. And if it means switching players, it means switching players. And that's what, if you play this through, that is what the guard on top thinks is going to happen, and it doesn't. So we were beat at the beginning of the play. It had really, to my opinion, nothing to do with the roll and replace action. We were beat on the down screen, no talk, how to fight through. Poor communication leads to hesitation, leads to a dunk.
This one I thought was really interesting. I don't know if I'm 100% correct on it, but it looked like to me they matched up on like the pass to the nail here and are now playing man.
So, I think, again, I think Coach Tyndall's elite. I think everybody, and when I made that comment earlier, watching teams play zone, the first thing I look for is who covers the high post. We run multiple zones on different years, and one of our big staples is if it gets to the high post, everybody else stays home.
Right.
A lot of times, coaches want to get the ball to the high post and then they're looking for those kick out threes because people run and suck in. And so I don't know his concept. I don't know if he has the same ball goes to the high post, everybody stays home and it kind of matches up. I would be curious to see what happens if our guy didn't shoot it. If he dribbles it back out or throws it somewhere else, do they jump back in to a normal zone look? Do they stay home? Like what do they do? To me, this, in my opinion, I feel like they're just staying home. They don't want to kick out three because we shoot a lot and we shoot it very well. He's
Right.
confident on that kid guarding our kid one on one. This would be very similar defensive principles to what we would do in any zone that we run.
So in game, would you notice this matchup and would it elicit some sort of there's something I want to attack out of it type deal? Or was that just kind of like, hey, that was odd and let's see what happens moving forward?
No, we might, it might turn into maybe I want to get a certain, if I think they're going to stay home, where it kind of turns into a one-on-one situation. I think if you have a guy that you're confident that can get a bucket or you have a matchup that you like,
Right.
I think you attack it. It's going to turn into a one-on-one. So if you're going to isolate that and try to attack that, you better be good with what that player's going to do. You're
Right.
not getting a kick out three. You're not probably going to get a whole lot else out of it. You might be able to run some secondary action if they're going to stay locked in, get somebody going to a situation they're not comfortable with. So to be honest, about the only thing I might try is, maybe number whatever is a really good one-on-one player from the top of the key or the free throw line. I like that matchup. Hey, run that again, do that exact same thing again, but you two guys flip spots.
Like
It might be that kind of situation.
this one was just a simple thing that I noticed. It was one of the few times that it happened, but you mentioned that this player was a pretty good player, their ball handler. I thought it was number one actually, sorry. But he ends up snaking on the step up. So it's an empty side ball screen. He's going towards the sideline and he snakes back towards the middle. Do you guys do anything within your concepts to defend against the snake that is different than what your normal concepts would be? He actually ends up throwing it away on this possession, but
No, to be honest, we try to let him not snake, not to be a complete smart, you know what? But right there, look at our big's feet. You got to take something. I'm real big on you got to take something away. And right there, you tell me, what are we taking away? I don't know what the heck we're taking away. And so, I think our big was too low. I think our big's feet was not angled properly. I think from this point on, we did okay. Again, that kid is a really good catch and shoot kid. He's a really good pull up three kid. He gets in the paint, in my opinion, what little scouting and watching we did. Again, they're not in our league. He is looking for other people when he gets to a certain point a lot.
right.
And so I thought our guys on the backside did a pretty good job. 30 did a really good job of watching his eyes, not over committing. We have a guy at the charge circle in case he gets too low. But the other two guys are really playing his eyes, trying to figure out where's he going to go and rotate out of it. So I think our concepts on that backside were pretty good. We got one guy ready to take away the rim. We got the other two guys ready to fly out and rotate. I would like our big's feet right there to be a heck of a lot better and be probably a little bit more sideline based. But I thought our overall principles on the backside were, you can see right there, we got one guy in the middle of the paint. We got one guy out at 15 feet on the wing. We got a dude with a foot on the nail. But like I think right here we're in pretty good shape. And especially when you factor in what we told them to do when 23 has it in that situation.
Like it. Um, this was a defending clip, and my note says help side cleared out for. Oh, this was the post lob. So basically, they attack from the offensive right side of the floor. Uh, then they wing pass and corner pass while their huge kid gets a seal, and they lift all the help out on the weak side, throw it over the top, he gets a dunk. How would you like to play that in an ideal world? What are your fronting and over the top principles?
Yeah, that one again is probably scout based. Um, for him, we're letting him catch. I mean, in my opinion, he's 9 foot tall. So if you front with weak side help, what the heck are you going to do? I mean, he's going to catch it and dunk it, whether my guy's down there or not. And so that kid is not a big score. I would have probably been okay with him even throwing it into the paint and him getting a hook and making it. To be completely honest with you,
Right,
so we just have no business fronting. Again, it's now talk kind of lack of awareness that you're down there by yourself. At no point in any scout going into Chipola did we talk about fronting and taking this kid away.
right.
So that's just
Gets
more
caught on the
not,
wrong side,
yeah,
basically.
not paying attention and um, remembering what the heck we're trying to do.
He is a very tall gentleman. You are very right about
Yeah, I
that.
mean, when you don't even have to jump to dunk the basketball, you got something going.
This is one more of attacking them in their press. They definitely had ratcheted up their aggression at this point. So you do a great job. You use 4 passes, get it over, and now they fall back into their zone. This is later in the game, so the reason why I had added it in is had you made any adjustments? Were there any things that you were looking at getting to once you get into the half court to look at isolating at this point? Or was it more of just, let's see if we can attack that nail area and get their help to lift up?
Yeah, I mean, it was more concept based. Again, like this set, and I think if you go back and watch this game, wherever 40 and 34 were, kind of told you what we were trying to get. And
Right,
so we break the press. We're in what I don't even remember what we called it because we put it in literally that morning. But 40's going to the top of the key. And so when 40's at the top of the key, we are looking middle, corners, and baseline because we're trying to isolate the 7-3 kid. Like we're not ever going to try to score on the 7-3 kid in the paint, but we're trying to make him cover ground and make him have to move his feet.
right,
And
right.
so
Create a split and make a decision type
yeah,
deal.
whether you can split it and get to the rim, like like right here, 5 does a good job. And the reason 5 is open is 22. 22 is going to draw all the action. And so 5 does a good job of kind of sealing a little bit and making himself available. And the guy driving in is just making the read. Do
Right.
they suck down and take 5 away? If they do, kick it. If they don't, 5's got a layup. And to be honest, I I thought because of how Chipola played and how really good they are, I let them go more in this game off of freelance concepts because I wanted us to try to play a little quicker, move the ball a little quicker. I kind of felt if we slowed down and ran sets, that was the advantage to Chipola. And so I wanted these guys to have to guard space and guard action, a lot more man offensive principles. I thought that was our advantage, would give us an opportunity to get open looks, and then we're either going to hit them or we're not.
Like it. Um, there's only about 4 clips from the second half that I pulled. I'll go through them relatively quick because we're coming up on the time that I'd asked you for. First one is a sideline out of bounds for them. They inbound and hand back to the inbounder and then set a double pin down for an open 3. Talk to me about it. Did you have the set? How would you change it in terms of the way that you play it?
Yeah, I mean, again, not to be a complete smart, but that's kind of who I am. Why the heck are you trying to jump through a double? I mean, at the end of the day, that's a That's a rookie who will probably never make that mistake again.
Right.
If you're not switching it, you're in a hip pocket. The kid is sprinting with his back to the rim. So in order for him to catch and shoot this, he's got to, completely do a 180. And so by you jumping it, it allows him to get his feet set. It allows him to get an easy shot. There's very few. I mean, there's very few Clay Thompsons of the world that can be sprinting completely away from the basket, full speed, catch, spin, and shoot it. Like there's not that many dudes in the world that can do that.
Yeah, and most of them are playing a pretty high level of basketball.
Yes, you and I don't get to coach those on a normal day. We
Right.
coach one every once in a while.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, again, it was more concept based. I thought if we spent a lot of time going through Donnie's 5,000 plays, it was just going to be a waste of time.
Right.
And so it was, again, if you're not switching it, you're tagging it, concepts that we have all year. He falls asleep, he's beat right there, and he panics. And he didn't understand by doing what he did, he was going to give up a really, really easy situation. If he would have tagged it, he might have still given something up, but it wasn't going to be that.
So this next one is a baseline out of bounds. It's also an ATO, and it's later in the game. There's 2 minutes left. I don't know if you remember the huddle on this at all, but you guys are up 1, and they had made a bit of a push to close it. And he draws up an elevator type set. So they cut over top towards the ball side, and then they go through the pinch or the elevator, maybe get away with a bit of a foul on that screen. I'm not a ref. And then they end up with the right wing shot. So, what did you expect coming out of that little break there, the timeout, and how do you think your guys played it? And what could you do better?
Again, this is probably a podcast to tell you how great Donnie Tyndall is, but if you look at it,
I'm so sorry.
I appreciate it. It's all right. I'll tell Donnie to send me 10%. If you look at it, the same cat for me is guarding the same action. And again, I told you he'll never make that mistake again. I meant after this game, not in this. And so I'm not an official either, although I can tell you on the sideline I've never missed a call. When I officiate in practice, I'm always wrong. But I don't know that it was 100% legal. But at the end of the day, what in the heck are you doing again? And so I think, again, ATO, he attacked the same kid. So I guess what I should have done is put that kid on somebody else, I guess.
Well, hindsight is 2020, as we say, right? So we got one more ATO that I wanted to ask you about here. So we're square at this point. 35 seconds left in the game. It's their ball, sideline out of bounds. It's an ATO. And they put it up top and hand back, and then cut away and open up one side of the floor. And he just drives from the high right slot and gets a bucket. And I'm assuming it's a guard your yard type response type deal, but what did you instruct your guys in the timeout here? And I noticed that you don't call the timeout afterwards. Did you not have any left? Because I couldn't tell from this screen. Or had you already instructed your guys to play into it if they do score type deal?
First part, yeah, it is kind of a guard your yard. At the end of the day, again, Coach Tyndall got a matchup that our guy on the ball is really, really good. The difference is that kid's legs and lower body is probably resembles an offensive lineman, and so physically that kid with the ball is probably going to go anywhere he wants to go. There's really no reason for my kid to do that. He kind of steps up a step, like that kid's not going to hit that shot up there. I don't know if he was anticipating a ball screen. He kind of got flat footed, and now we're beat. Right there, it's a problem because it's going to be shoulder to shoulder, and he's bigger and stronger than my kid.
Right.
My kid is quicker, and so he still makes a fairly tough shot. I thought my kid did a pretty good job of getting back into the play.
I would agree with you.
It was so cleared out that my big tries to get over there, and number 5 does a good job of getting underneath their big to take away the offensive rebound. So, I think tip the cap to them. It was a really good play. In terms of a timeout, we had 2 left. Um, again, because of Chipola, zone press back into a zone. I told them we were not going to call one. I told them if they score, get it out and go. If they don't score, get it and go. I thought the less we could let Chipola set up, the better.
Right.
So it was just more of a philosophy thing. Again, we spend a lot of time with our guys on the practice court. I mean, we're on game 24. We're in the Elite Eight. If you don't trust them by then, when the heck are you going to trust them?
Yeah.
And so if Donnie wasn't a zone press zone team, I probably would have burnt one. But I just didn't want him to get set up, give him more instructions. I wanted to try to take Donnie out of it, to be completely honest. I think, I was told that early on in my career, if you can make it a 5-on-5 game and take the guys in the suits out of the game, I like my chances. And so we work really hard to prepare our guys during the week, let them play on game days within the concepts that we have taught them. And in a lot of those situations, I let them play because I trust my 5 over their 5.
So you told them to get it and go. Did you give them anything in terms of like a matchup that you wanted to attack, or an action that you wanted to use that were within your concepts? I mean, basically, you guys end up attacking from the left wing against the closeout, but he just ends up getting cut off and travels, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, again, we put in a couple concepts that morning, and I've said a few times now, if you see where 34 or 40 are, you kind of understand what we're trying to get. 34 was low, and so it opens up the middle a little bit more. The drive baseline was probably not the right read when we have that guy low. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think it was probably hindsight. I should have said screw it and called a timeout, to be fair. But I think our kid, I don't know, maybe mentally didn't remember where the guy was, or, heat of the moment, Elite Eight, a few seconds to go, um, right there. I think my kid knows he's in trouble and made the wrong read, but
Right.
we were trying to attack the middle. I was going to live with, we're down 2. We're going to live with a middle jumper. Maybe Chipola falls asleep and we get a kick out 3 and go up 1. But the only call that I made was I wanted 34 low, try to open up the middle of the floor. They kind of knew the concepts and what we've been trying to do all game.
Right. I love it. Coach, sorry if it felt like I was picking on you a little bit. I didn't
That's all right.
mean that to be the method at all. I'm very happy that you would take the time and share your concepts and your method of attack with us and go through some film. Uh, it's a great game. You guys ended up, I watched the whole game. Obviously, it was a great game. You were leading, as you said, for 38 and a half minutes of it. Unfortunately, just a couple plays didn't come together at the end. But as far as everything goes, as I said, I just want to give you a big special thanks for taking the time to sit down, and all the other coaches in the room sharing their time as well. Um, and it was great to hear your perspective on it. So thanks so much for doing this.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Tune in next week. We will have the national team coach from Team Guyana joining us. And again, just a big special thanks to Coach Charlie Wilson for taking his time. Good luck next season, Coach. I look forward to seeing what you'll do.
Appreciate it. Thank you.